Well, hello there, and welcome back to Gene and Roger Talks Movies. We're talking about what I'm going to call a hidden gem, a film that many people have not seen, and Gene is already rubbing his eyes when I say this. But we're talking about the Bill Paxton directed film Frailty, originally released back in April of 2002. I believe it was April 12th. Didn't really make a lot of money at the theater, was critically liked, but not really widely seen. Gene, initial thoughts on Frailty?
Frailty is one of those movies. Roger's been into horror movies a lot longer than I have, and he really kind of promoted this movie for me. And I was really expecting a lot walking into this thing, but we are a horror movie review site, and I just don't think this movie is horror. It's definitely good. It brings up some very interesting questions. And I think, for example, like a big question that comes up is that if God exists, let's just go with that supposition. If God exists, what does he want from us? And so I think that's the central question of this movie. The whole movie kind of revolves around this question. I would approach this movie in my review probably from that question, that philosophical point. But, as a movie, it's good. It's got some twists in it. It makes you really think about what's going on. Overall, would I recommend the movie? Yeah, it's good. But is it a horror movie? No, I don't think so. But, yeah, Roger, it's okay.
So I do put this in the horror category.
No.
For those that have not seen this film, and Gene is grumbling in the background here, but for those that have not seen the film, Matthew McConaughey is in it. Bill Paxton is in it. He also directed the only movie he directed. Powers Booth, our beloved friend Powers Booth, is in this movie.
Gotta like Powers Booth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Luke Askew is in this as well. And then there's two young boys. So the cast is very small. But the basic premise is there has been this serial killer going by the name of the God's Hand Killer lurking around in this Texas town. And Matthew McConaughey's character shows up at the FBI office to have a conversation with Powers Booth about how he knows
who's an FBI agent.
Yeah, who knows. And he's like, I know who this God's Hand Killer is. And so the story then is turned into a series of flashbacks where you are introduced to Bill Paxton's character. He's the father, and he has these two young boys. One is named Fenton, and the other is named Adam.
Right.
And the initial parts of the film are just setting up this father-son kind of relationship. He's the breadwinner, and the
mother has passed away.
Mother has passed away, and he works as like a car mechanic, and he's prepares the meals for them, and they have these nice dinners around the table and all that. And then in the middle of the night, Dad approaches the two boys who live in the same room. They've got beds, in there
side by side, not bunk beds.
And he comes in there and says, "Hey, I've received this vision from God, and God is telling me there's all these demons out there, and this angel is gonna provide me with weapons for us to go and take care of them.
We need to find the weapons that God will provide." And there's subsequent sequences where there's rays of light shining on different weapons. So that's the sign from God. You got to choose that weapon.
Mm-hmm. And one of them is just an axe. It has the name Otis scribbled into it or carved into it.
Yeah.
The other is just your everyday average lead pipe. And then there's a pair of gloves. And where I'm calling this a horror film is, of course, you're going to have scenes of axe murders going on, although nothing is shown. Bill Paxton is very restrained in how he sets these up. But to me, the horror element is this film is set up where the two young boys and the father are kind of off the beaten track with their house. You have to walk through kind of this rose garden to get to their house. They're a little bit isolated. And suddenly you have your father, your trusted father, who's been the breadwinner for years and years and just a good all-around guy, telling you this elaborate tale about how we are waiting from a list from this angel of names that I have to go get, and we're going to kill because they're actually demons.
They're not really people, they're demons.
Right. And so that's, to me, where the horror element of this film comes in. And so it does fit within the horror. Is it a hardcore horror film like, Audition or Texas Chainsaw Massacre or something like that? No, it is much more restrained than those types of films, but I still put it in that realm of horror.
Yeah, but is it like even a psychological terror, like maybe like The Witch, or some of the other like movies like that, Hereditary? I wouldn't even put it in that category.
I would put it in
I
that
would
category
not.
because you immediately get this dynamic where Fenton, the older boy, and I don't know, how old do you think that kid is?
I'd put him like 13.
13, somewhere in there. And then Fenton is immediately saying, okay, Dad, something's wrong with you. You're crazy.
Right.
And the other younger boy, who's maybe 8
Adam,
or something,
8, 9.
he immediately is on board with what Dad is saying without any sort of evidence of any kind. And so you get this psychological thing going on as the movie plays out, where is Dad a crazy person, or did he really get this message from this angel that there's demons lurking around and you have to start randomly killing them? And so I really enjoyed that. And again, it's told through flashbacks. So you go back to Matthew McConaughey and Powers Booth at various points throughout the whole film, in the present day, where he's explaining, Matthew McConaughey, who portrays one of the brothers,
Yes.
is explaining this to
Adam. We can just say
Powers
Adam.
Booth. Well, and if you haven't seen the film, and I probably should have done this immediately.
Well, you listen to our podcast. We give it away.
We're gonna ruin it for you.
Yeah,
but
we're reviewing the movie.
part of the film hinges on Matthew McConaughey identifies himself as the older brother at the beginning of the film, and as it plays out, maybe he's not the older brother,
he's
actually
brother.
the younger
It's
brother.
Adam.
And so anyway, that's kind of the psychological aspect of it is the dad a crazy person, or is he telling the truth? And then I also like the sequences where the first time the dad does get this list, he gets this list of names, and he goes out one night and the boys don't know when he's coming back or if he's coming back. And then he does come back, but he's got this woman all tied up.
Yeah.
He's going to take her to the shed, and he calls both of the boys. Boys, come here. Boys, you got to see what we're doing here. And he then takes the glove off, and he puts it on the woman, and the dad goes through like these spasms or whatever, like he's seeing something. But we as the viewer don't see anything.
No,
it's just
we don't
a
see
shivering, scared, crying
Yeah, he puts
woman
his hand on the woman's head, as he does with all of his victims.
Mm-hmm.
And then the movie, it just seems silly right here, is that he, like, when he touches the victim's head, he like goes into like a spasm. Like
Mm-hmm.
we've all seen those like crazy videos of like those faith healers.
Right.
They go into small towns in Texas with the tents, and then they bring up the people to the stage they're on their walkers and their wheelchairs, and the guy puts his hand on them, and there's like a spasm of energy, like that. Think of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's happening in this movie. So I'm losing credibility a lot right here. So that's what happens. And, you find out later that the dad is actually seeing visions of what evilness, quote unquote evilness, this person has done through the touch.
Yeah, but the movie is playing out as you don't know, as the viewer. You don't know. Okay, is Dad crazy? Is Fenton, the older boy, right by saying, Dad, you're insane. I need to go get you help? The younger boy immediately is buying into what his dad is saying and doing.
The movie loses it again for me right there because, like I'm a dad of 2 boys, and I'm thinking back to my childhood and, my interactions with my dad. And I don't know, even as an 8-year-old, I see children having a pretty strong sense of right and wrong. And some things are just clearly wrong. You have a woman who's tied up. Was it in her basement? The dad brought her in the basement.
Dad took her into the shed before they actually.
The shed,
cut
right?
Her out.
You have a person who's tied up in a shed, obviously in distress, and your dad's coming with an axe. Even at 8 years old, what's going on, and that this is not good. 8-year-olds have this sense. Absolutely, I'm convinced. And it's just not correct or logical that this 8-year-old is so buying into the father's vision, unless that 8-year-old is also sharing, perhaps, in those visions.
Right, and of course, as the movie goes along, and of course, major spoilers, that young boy is seeing the visions. So at the end of the day, the dad is legitimately been talked to by an angel. He is legitimately seeing these visions. The boy is also under the influence of the angel and seeing the visions, and the older boy, Fenton, is not.
It's not, right.
And so really, Bill Paxton, I think, purposely tries to direct your attention towards Fenton as the person you should be paying attention to, because he's suddenly in this weird situation where dad is hacking people up with an axe. My younger brother is totally into it as well, and I think everything's gone insane. But then as the movie plays out even more, Bill Paxton gives dialogue basically saying, Fenton, the angel told me that you were a demon. Right.
Right.
And so you start getting these clues on a second viewing, perhaps, that show you how intricate Bill Paxton created this storyline where, okay, we think dad's maybe crazy, but actually dad is totally legit. And he is like, yeah, Fenton, I know you're a demon. I'm not going to listen to the angel on this regard.
Right. They do bring up the story in the Bible of Isaac where God told Isaac to sacrifice his son. And so Isaac takes him up to the mountain and ties him up and is about to kill him with a knife. But then God intervenes at the last second and saves Isaac. But he brings up this point in this movie is that, the dad is not willing to kill Fenton. So the dad kind of blows it because Fenton, I'm just going to say, but Fenton eventually kills his dad. Mm-hmm. And so that's his evil because it seems like the criteria to be quote unquote a demon is that you've committed murder or that you've killed or abused other people. There's a child molester there. There's someone who is a wife abuser. Mm-hmm. Right. And so these people, need to be killed because they've done these acts. Which kind of brings me up to my point, at the beginning is that, if God exists, let's just assume he is, what does he want from us? Is God a God of vengeance and retribution? Like if you commit a sin, quote unquote sin, you commit the worst sin, murder. Does that mean that you are then, it's okay for someone then to kill you? I don't know. I've read the Bible. It doesn't seem like the God that I read about is a God of vengeance and retribution. There doesn't seem to be any effort of forgiveness here. It just seems like they've blindly bought into this vision. Which it kind of brings up, another point is that, in faith today, do people just really think critically about this thing called the Bible? Do they just read the stories, or do they just read the stories blindly and you just say, "Oh, okay," But I think it's a little thought is required, And I just didn't like that the dad and Adam just so fully bought into the vision, absolutely 100% with no critical eye, no forethought. Thinking about even if a person did something bad, does that mean it's okay for me to kill him? But I guess they justify it because they don't call them people. They call them demons, mm-hmm. Which I guess it makes me think about wartime, like in, the present war in Ukraine, Ukrainian soldiers, they call the Russian soldiers meat, mm-hmm. And back in World War II, Russian soldiers would call the German soldiers sticks, and so it was just like they're just breaking sticks. So it's easier to kill them because they're not really real, and you invent these names for your opponents. So it's easier to destroy them. So they just call them demons. So they're not really human, but clearly they're real people. This is a real woman that's been tied up. They go after and then they kill other people. But it does seem like there is some kind of divine intervention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're definitely
because they kill these people. They kidnap and knock out this older man in this busy parking lot. And the kids are obviously saying, Dad, shouldn't we do something? Like, there's people going to see us. And the dad's, no, God's going to protect us.
Yeah, we're definitely dealing with Old Testament God here, right? With the retribution aspect and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think as the movie continues along, I do also like this scene where Luke Askew shows up. And for those of you who don't know Luke Askew, he was the hitchhiker in Easy Rider, who was super awesome in that movie. And he's been, of course, in tons and tons of other things. But he plays this sheriff. And so Fenton eventually is like, man, I got to just run to the sheriff because this is way out of hand here.
But do they believe this kid? No, of course not.
He doesn't, but he does drive the kid back to the house. And then there's this sequence where the sheriff is just like, well, I guess we should maybe go look at your shed just to see, because the kid's just totally not going to listen until not going to shut up.
Yeah, he doesn't let it go. He's very determined.
And earlier, one of the angelic visions was, if you're telling people and things, someone's going to die. And there's this great sequence there where Bill Paxton is looking at Fenton going, are you sure you want to go down to the shed with this sheriff? Do you really want to do that? Is that really what you want to do? Because Bill Paxton already knew that we were going to have to kill this sheriff. And I like the scene when he does kill the sheriff, because this is the first time where Bill Paxton's like, I've killed someone. He's already killed 3 or 4 or more people by that time. But this one is the
demons,
one. They're demons, right?
This one was not on the list.
Not on the list. He's a real human. No problem. Shouldn't have been killed.
But he had to kill him because Fenton kind of, quote unquote, broke the rules.
Yep, broke the rules. And so that is also a scene I really like, where Fenton is just, and the audience is completely astounded that you're Bill Paxton, you're freaking out about killing this guy when we have seen you kill a bunch of other people. And so it still builds on that idea of, is Bill Paxton just a crazy person? And as it continues to play out, of course, we find out that no, he wasn't. But then there's the great scene where Bill Paxton finally is like, son, I'm going to just throw you in the basement here and board up the basement, so you're going to be down there until you have your religious experience, you see God. And then
and is there weeks?
Yeah, for quite a long time. And I do like the one scene where Bill Paxton opens the cellar door up and the kid is like, there is no God and stuff. And so he
closes it again.
Yeah, and he
you have to wait more.
Clearly transformed completely into one of these demons, just like the angel had told Bill Paxton his son was a demon. And then eventually he's lying to his dad. Oh, I saw God and all this stuff. And then they take him out of there, and then they take him to his first kill of one of these demons. And it doesn't go quite as planned.
The movie is, to me, it's like more of like a vehicle for thinking about these bigger topics. Mm-hmm. Again, going back to God, and it's like, do we believe God blindly? And just and even it makes me think about, I briefly brought up, wartime earlier, is like if your commanding officer gives you an order that you clearly know is immoral and it's just wrong, do you execute it anyway? Like a lot of in the trials for the Nazis after World War II, mm-hmm. The big the defense line was, I was just following orders. So, but there got to come a point where you just can't follow orders. You really have to do something.
Well, and I like that you brought that up, because there has been relatively recent studies, and I cannot remember the psychologist's name right off the top of my head, but he set up that device where people would come in and you had this dial, and
it's peer pressure,
and you would hear people screaming if you were putting this dial up, and you had this authoritarian figure, a doctor,
kept telling you it's okay,
it's okay, keep turning it up, and you had all this screaming going on, and so it's amazing how easily you can slide into that trap of doing something that is wrong, but you do it anyway.
Yeah, the experiment is that. Yeah, an authoritarian figure would keep telling you that it's okay, but mm-hmm. you can clearly hear the other person in the other room being in distress. And it turned out that oftentimes, people giving the electric shocks would actually would have been, if in real life, would have been a lethal dose.
Right. Right. And
Right.
so, and that
So
kind
it
of,
just makes me feel sad about humanity that such things would happen. That we would so fall. And this authority is, you don't know this is in the experiment.
Mhm.
You just said he's an authority.
Right.
You don't have any proof. What's your proof that he's an? It just to me it just brings up there's just this whole being obedient, or do you have a mind of your own? Can you make independent decisions? Can you critically think about things that your eyes are telling you? Or do you just close your eyes and blindly follow? So in this movie, the dad, Adam Meeks, they're in the follower category. They don't question anything. It turns out that the movie kind of throws a little twist, is that all the victims, this is later in the movie, all the victims are buried in that garden.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question easily arises, because anyone can just walk into the garden. How come somebody hasn't found all these graves, and the graves are just shallow graves? You can see them right there. No, it's because God is protecting that site,
Mm-hmm.
from people finding them. And later on, Adam, after it's revealed that maybe Fenton is the God's hand killer, and Fenton is on a murderous rampage and he's just killing people, because Adam says that Fenton, quote unquote, puts his trophies in his basement.
Mm-hmm.
So Fenton is the older brother, is the God's hand killer.
Yep.
Because then Adam and his dad were killing people, but their bodies were never found because they were in the quote unquote the hidden little garden there. But still, it's just like, I think Fenton becomes the God's hand killer because he just is so messed up. He's just so traumatized, maybe he can't handle it, or that's how he reacts to it. But I think the real monsters in this movie is Adam and his dad.
Well, and I would disagree with that, because they have clearly received direct instructions from the Lord on.
But you
doing
could
this
say
stuff.
it's like, would the real God give instructions to do such a thing? No, maybe he's receiving instructions from the other guy. And can the other guy give such visions, if you will? Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Because if you believe in God, does that not imply that the other guy exists as well, right? Both living in that spiritual realm. So, because I think if you believe in one, that the other one goes with it. So, and does the other guy, have certain abilities and powers? Yeah, and certainly I think the other guy, is one of his strongest abilities is the ability to manipulate and mislead people. Yeah, I think we see that every day. Look in our culture. People are just behaving in ways you just like, what in the world? Maybe that's it,
Well, this movie,
People are being misled.
there is nothing in this movie to indicate that the other guy is what Bill Paxton is dealing with.
Yeah,
here.
because Bill Paxton and Adam, they keep referring back to God. But I think it's just something that, if you just blindly follow your faith that does no critical questioning, you just blindly follow, then you can be misled, led down the wrong path very easily.
Right.
Just like that experiment we alluded to. No questions. You just do what the guy says. Yeah, you become a serial killer.
Right.
And clearly Fenton, Adam and the dad they're the killers.
Well, but
So
I also think,
I guess final thought.
Okay.
I would say this is that even if all those guys were despicable people and they had committed all these crimes, is it justifiable then to kill them?
Well, in the context of this film, remember, it was talking about the coming war. And so the
Yes.
angels have now decided we're going to start thinning our enemy herd here, which is why they're doing this kind of stuff. And I think Fenton, I don't know how messed up he was about this, because very early on, Bill Paxton is saying how the angel told me you were a demon, and I don't believe them. And so this guy, Fenton, has been a demon for I don't know how long. And so he didn't become the God's hand killer because of this trauma of seeing his dad freak out and start killing people. it was almost preordained that he was going to do that. And then also, I like how Fenton is actually trying to find his salvation by having Adam come and take him out. Because initially, the very first God hands killer victim is actually found, and there's a note with that victim. And that note essentially is letting Adam know, I'm out here, I'm doing this stuff, come get me when my name appears on your list. And then they don't find any other victims of the God's hand killer, just notes. Oh, this is another horrible thing I've done. And
Fenton's writing notes.
Mm-hmm, and
sitting at there's a part of the movie where his desk typewriter and he's writing a note.
Right. And so that to me is the only redemption arc for the Fenton character is he's trying to get on Adam's list so Adam will come and take him out finally. And so it'll stop.
And finally he does appear on Adam's list. But Adam can't kill him till he is on the list.
Right.
And he's quote unquote a demon. And then once he's on the list, he's a demon, I can get you.
Yep. And so
yeah, I like at the very end of the movie, the FBI agent goes to interview Adam Meeks. He's actually a sheriff of that local town. And as they're departing, they shake hands. And then Adam holds the FBI agent's hand a little bit longer, and then he says to him, "You're a good man."
Right.
Because he can see his heart. He can see inside, and he can see, oh, yeah, you're a good guy.
You're okay. You're not going to be on my list.
Yeah, but it just brings up another question is that then what kind of transgressions do you have to do to be on the list? Because it doesn't seem it's necessarily a murder. You have to commit murder to be on the list.
Well, I think you're probably right on that because I think everyone that we know was killed by Bill Paxton or Adam was somebody who had killed someone.
Well, the wife abuser, did he murder somebody?
Well, I don't know if they showed that one in flashback, but the blonde girl had
killed somebody, right?
The child molester guy was...
It seemed like he had killed, yes.
Absolutely had killed. And then, of course, Fenton was an obvious killer. And then, of course, Powers Booth, who, spoilers, gets killed at the end also because he killed his mother.
Because he killed his mother for undisclosed reasons.
Yeah, and so the whole movie, even though told in flashbacks, it's Matthew McConaughey, Adam, basically has tracked down Powers Booth and knows that he's on the list and he's got to get him to the Rose Garden so he can kill him there and have him buried there.
Right. It just kind of maybe a final thought coming to the end, but it just makes me think about our modern societies. Like in modern society, there are people that commit this crime, murder, but we don't kill them. Do all murderers receive the death sentence? No, they do not. And actually, oftentimes the sentence for murder is actually less than the sentence for other crimes.
Right.
And so, are there people and the FBI stats prove and show that the closure rates for murder cases is not 100%. So there are lots of people who have committed murders who have never been caught, and then they're out there.
Right.
We're driving down the highway. We're driving along the highway with people who have killed other people. Either they served time in prison or jail for that, and they're out, or they were just never caught. But still brings a question: is it okay to kill him? I think the God of the Bible. That there's a lot of the word forgiveness and mercy appears a lot in that Bible. So,
well,
but I think we have to. Yeah,
we're dealing with Old Testament God here, though.
No, I think even the Old Testament God, there was, even the Old Testament God gave the Israelites so many chances, and they kept blowing it. But God gave them another chance and another chance and another chance. That's even the Old Testament God is very merciful.
Well, but he also drowned everybody except for Noah.
Well, that's almost another topic. Did that really happen, or is it the telling of a good story?
Well, there is the movie with Russell Crowe, right? So it's got to have happened, right?
There is a movie with Russell Crowe. We have to not even get into that.
We are way off topic.
Oh my
Gene,
gosh.
any final thoughts on Frailty?
Well, Frailty's good. It's a good movie. It makes you think, and of course, I think what Roger, it made him think about topics that were different than what I thought about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think, you know, good movies have that ability. It makes you think about your life. You know, I don't, would I call this movie a horror? Actually, I wouldn't. It's more of a, to me, it's a thriller. You know, it would have been horror if you had seen some of the victims getting killed, you know.
Well, I will
like
say, Gene, that I do enjoy, since we've been doing this podcast, your desire for bloodlust has gone up. So I do appreciate that.
Well, I do consider, like, my kid and I, we were watching the HBO series, you know, Last of Us, and there is a lot of blood in that thing. The protagonists in that movie do not mess around. And so I think if you're going to call yourself horror, there should be a little of that.
Yeah, I of course, I
don't see any blood in this movie.
I definitely recommend this film. You know, Bill Paxton, I am sorry that he has passed away and didn't get to direct
that's another story
film,
right there, isn't it?
You know,
yes, that's
and
another story.
Powers Booth, of course, has also passed away, but he's great in this movie. The acting is good. Like I said, a small cast. Even the two young boys.
Yeah, they do a great job.
They do a great job. So you've got what I'm going to call a potential hidden gem for some of you out there. It's not a movie that was very popular, but it's definitely one to maybe take a look at, and highly recommended. So, Gene,
I would recommend it. Maybe I wouldn't use the word highly.
Okay, well, recommended is good enough for Gene then. So I have no idea what we're going to do next week.
Yeah, what are we doing? Maybe Lamb. We were talking about Lamb.
Well, or we
maybe
could do Saint Maud. I think
Saint
would be
Maud.
better.
Yeah, Saint Maud.
So yeah, we'll hit Saint Maud for next week, and that'll be kind of a nice extra feature with this one because it's also kind of got a religious twist on it.
Yeah.
So.
Although my kids and I are going to see that movie 65 this weekend because my younger kid's really into dinosaurs and that kind of a genre. So,
well,
a lot of blood in that movie, I'm sure.
The one potential cool part about that movie, that 65, is I noticed it's only 93 minutes long.
Yeah,
so it's going to get right to the action.
It's going to get right to the point.
So good job for that. Or maybe not. I don't know. Gene, you can tell me what it's like when you see it.
Adam
Anyway,
Driver.
We are once again just way off topic.
We're way off topic.
Thanks for tuning in. We will catch you the next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.